before Cyrus the Great built his empire, before Persia dominated the ancient world, before anyone had ever heard the name Achaemenid, another empire already ruled this land. They defeated the most feared military machine in the ancient world. They built cities that rivaled anything in Mesopotamia. They created a cultural foundation that later Persian kings built upon. Yet almost nobody knows their name today. History has largely forgotten them, overshadowed by the more famous empires that came after. They were the Medes, the forgotten empire that ruled Iran before Persia existed, the empire that made Persia possible. This is their story. The Medes were an ancient Iranian people who migrated onto the Iranian plateau sometime around 1000 BC. They were part of a larger wave of Indo-Iranian peoples who settled across what is now Iran, Afghanistan, and Central Asia during this period. Initially, they lived as scattered tribes in the Zagros mountain region of northwestern Iran. Each tribe governed independently without central authority. They spoke an ancient Iranian language closely related to Old Persian. They worshipped early Iranian gods that would eventually evolve into Zoroastrianism. They were skilled horsemen and warriors, living in a harsh mountainous environment that made them tough, resilient, and fiercely independent fighters who resisted outside control. The force that eventually united the Median tribes was their shared enemy, the Assyrian Empire. Assyria was the most feared military power in the ancient world. Their armies were professional, disciplined, and brutally effective. They used iron weapons, sophisticated siege techniques, and psychological terror to conquer everything in their path. The Assyrians regularly raided Median territory, taking captives, demanding tribute, and installing puppet rulers. They treated conquered peoples with extraordinary cruelty, deporting entire populations and destroying cities that resisted. For the Median tribes, submission to Assyria meant slavery and humiliation. This shared threat created a powerful motivation to unite under single leadership and fight back together as one people. According to the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, the unification of Media began with a clever man named Deioces around 728 BC. Deioces gained fame as a fair and wise judge among his people, settling disputes so effectively that tribes came from great distances to seek his judgment. When he eventually withdrew his services, chaos erupted, and the tribes realized they needed permanent centralized authority. They chose Deioces as their first king. He then made a series of demands: build him a magnificent palace city, give him an elaborate royal court, and never approach him directly. This deliberately created an aura of divine royal authority that transformed a tribal judge into an imperial ruler. Deioces built his capital at Ecbatana, located in the Zagros Mountains at what is now the modern Iranian city of Hamadan. Herodotus described Ecbatana as a magnificent city with 7 concentric circular walls, each painted a different color with the innermost walls covered in silver and gold. While some of this description may be exaggerated, archaeological evidence confirms that Ecbatana was indeed a major urban center with substantial architecture and wealth. The city sat at a strategic crossroads of ancient trade routes, making it both militarily defensible and economically valuable. Ecbatana would remain an important city for centuries, later serving as a summer capital for the Achaemenid Persian kings who conquered it. The Median Empire reached its greatest power under King Cyaxares, who ruled from approximately 625 to 585 BC. Cyaxares was one of the most capable military commanders of the ancient world. He completely reformed the Median army, organizing it into specialized units of spearmen, archers, and cavalry rather than the disorganized tribal levies of the past. He formed a crucial alliance with the Babylonian Empire under King Nabopolassar. Together, Medes and Babylonians turned against their common oppressor. What followed was one of the most dramatic reversals of power in ancient history. The hunters became the hunted. The most feared empire in the ancient world was about to fall. In 614 BC, the Median army attacked and destroyed Ashur, the ancient religious capital of Assyria. The Babylonian forces arrived just after the battle to find the city already fallen. The two allies then besieged Nineveh, the magnificent Assyrian capital and one of the greatest cities in the ancient world. In 612 BC, Nineveh fell after a brutal siege. The city was systematically destroyed. The Assyrian king died in the ruins of his own palace. The great Assyrian Empire that had terrorized the ancient Near East for centuries collapsed completely within a few years. The ancient world was shocked. The prophet Nahum in the Hebrew Bible celebrated Nineveh's fall with barely concealed joy. After destroying Assyria, the Median Empire became one of the four great powers of the ancient world, alongside Babylon, Egypt, and Lydia. Cyrus expanded Median territory dramatically. He pushed eastward into Central Asia. He extended Median control across much of the Iranian plateau. He fought wars in Anatolia, modern Turkey, against the Lydian kingdom of the famous King Croesus. A famous battle between Media and Lydia was interrupted by a solar eclipse that both sides interpreted as a divine sign to stop fighting. They negotiated peace, and the Halys River became the boundary between the two empires. Media now controlled an enormous territory stretching from Anatolia to Central Asia. Despite their historical importance, we know frustratingly little about Median culture because they left few written records and their capital, Ecbatana, has never been fully excavated. What we know comes mostly from Greek and Babylonian sources. The Medes were skilled metalworkers, particularly in gold and bronze. Median art featured animal motifs and geometric patterns that influenced later Persian artistic style significantly. They were excellent horsemen who bred and trained the famous Nisaean horses, considered the finest war horses in the ancient world. Their clothing styles, particularly the distinctive Median robe and trousers, were later adopted by the Persian Achaemenid kings as royal court dress, demonstrating deep cultural influence. The last Median king was Astyages, who ruled from approximately 585 to 550 BC. According to legend, Astyages had a terrifying dream that his grandson would overthrow him and rule all of Asia. His advisors interpreted this as a genuine prophecy. His daughter had married a Persian nobleman, and their son was the child of the prophecy. Astyages ordered the baby killed, but the servant tasked with the murder couldn't do it. He gave the infant to a shepherd family to raise in secret. That baby was named Cyrus. He grew up, discovered his true identity, and eventually fulfilled the prophecy that his grandfather had desperately tried to prevent from coming true. Cyrus grew up in Persia, a vassal state of the Median Empire. When he discovered his royal Median blood, everything changed. Around 553 BC, Cyrus launched a rebellion against his grandfather Astyages. What happened next shocked the ancient world. The Median army, fed up with Astyages' harsh and erratic rule, mutinied. Instead of fighting Cyrus, they switched sides and joined him. Astyages was captured by his own generals and handed over to Cyrus. According to ancient accounts, Cyrus treated his grandfather with surprising mercy, keeping him alive at court rather than executing him. The Median Empire didn't fall in a bloody conquest. It transformed peacefully into the foundation of the Persian Empire. The peaceful transition from Median to Persian power is one of the most remarkable events in ancient history. The Median nobility didn't resist. They joined. Why? Because Cyrus was half Median through his mother. He was their blood. He spoke their language. He respected their culture. He incorporated Median nobles into his new Persian court at the highest levels. Median generals commanded Persian armies. Median administrators governed Persian provinces. The Median religious and cultural traditions were preserved and honored within the new empire. The Achaemenid Persian Empire wasn't built on the ruins of Media. It was built on Media's foundations, with Median people as full partners in the new imperial project that would reshape the world. The Median contribution to Persian civilization was profound and lasting. The Persian royal court adopted Median clothing as the official royal dress. Median nobles became Persian nobles. The Median administrative system of dividing empire into provinces governed by satraps was adopted and expanded by Darius the Great. The Median concept of a universal empire stretching from east to west became the Persian imperial ideal. Even the famous Persian immortals, the elite royal guard of 10,000 soldiers that protected the Achaemenid kings, may have originated as a Median institution. Ecbatana remained a royal capital. Median priests called Magi became the religious specialists of the Persian Empire. Media didn't disappear. It became Persia. The Medes have been largely forgotten by history for several interconnected reasons. First, they left very few written records of their own. Everything we know comes from Greek, Babylonian, and Persian sources written by outsiders. Second, their capital Ecbatana has never been fully excavated because the modern city of Hamadan sits directly on top of it. Archaeologists cannot dig without destroying the living city above. Third, the Persian Empire that replaced them was so magnificent and so thoroughly documented that it overshadowed everything that came before. The Medes were absorbed so completely into Persian civilization that their separate identity became invisible. But invisible doesn't mean unimportant. The Medes were the essential foundation of everything that followed. The Medes built the first great Iranian empire. They united scattered tribes into a unified state. They destroyed the most feared military power of their age. They created the administrative and cultural foundations that the Persian Empire built upon. They gave Cyrus the Great his royal blood, his imperial model, and his willing partners in building a new world empire. Without the Medes, there is no Persian Empire. Without the Medes, there is no Persian Empire. The ancient world looks completely different. The forgotten empire deserves to be remembered, not as a footnote before Cyrus, but as the essential first chapter in one of history's greatest stories. This is Historiopedia, history that feels real.